Hello again, everyone. Ken from Whittling Woods back again with another whittling wood carving video. We did a walnut wood spirit last week, and I still have quite a bit of that walnut left. So today I think we're going to take it another step. We're going to do a little gnome. So walnut wood gnome. And we're going to use this piece of walnut here. It was a branch that fell out of a tree, like I mentioned in the last video. If you haven't checked that video, I'll have a link over here for you. Feel free to check that out. I'm kind of gearing these towards beginners, people who are interested in whittling found wood. Last week we used a knife made by one of my viewers, my good buddy Mark, aka Black Bart. And this week we're going to use a pocket knife. And the reason the pocket knife, I was going to use Mark's knife again on this one, but the reason I wanted to use a pocket knife is because I've had over the years a number of viewers who don't have access to whittling knives, and they've often asked me, what can they do for whittling knives, or maybe in another country that they don't have ready access to whittling knives, or it's very expensive to have them shipped there. So I'm sure most places will sell pocket knives, so that's why I figured we're going to do a pocket knife. But barring that, if you don't have a pocket knife, you can always go find yourself a utility knife. You've seen me do a number of whittles with utility knives. This is a Stanley 199. You can use something similar to this. I'll have links up over here again, showing you how I prepare, pocket knives and Stanleys and stuff like that. So if you're in an area where you do not have access to a traditional whittling knife, there's some options for you, and hopefully that'll get you started whittling. But today we're going to use, like I said, this piece of walnut. We're going to carve ourselves a little wood gnome. Piece is about 7 inches long. Yep, 7 inches. And I think it's about 1.5 inches or so, give or take, 1.5 inches to about 1 inch and 3/8 or so, give or take. So we're gonna, I look it over a little bit. I think I want the wider area, for the front of the figure, because I think I'm going to give him a little bit of hair and a beard. It's going to be maybe simple. Maybe it's kind of like he's coming out of a tree trunk or something. I don't know, something silly like that we'll do. But we'll play around with it. We're going to wind up removing in this one most of the bark to do that. Last week we kept a lot of the bark arm when we did the wood spirit, but this week we're going to try something different and remove a lot of bark. So I'm going to get everything set up, and I will be right back. Okay, normally what I do is I start off with the larger blade. This is a Rough Ryder pocket knife. It's an old one. It's probably well over 15 years old. I start off with the larger blade, and I remove the bark with that, and maybe do some of the rough whittling. If you're interested in obtaining a Rough Ryder knife, they don't make this particular model anymore. Like I said, it's probably 15, 16 years old. I'll have a link. Well, I won't have a link because you buy them where they're available. I'll have the model number of this current knife, but check them out. They're decent. They're decent quality knives. I can't speak for the newer ones, but these knives are pretty good. But anyway, let's get started here. I'm just gonna make a mess here and remove quite a bit of the bark here to get ourselves started. This branch was fallen out of a tree maybe a few weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, if that. And normally I store my wood in some water. This one, this was a larger branch section, and I had intention to make it a walking stick, but it had too many bends and curves to it to make that kind of somewhat impractical. So I decided to cut it down and get some little whittles in there. And all I'm doing is just removing the bark. So I'm going to get it to a point where I get most of the bark that I need removed, and I'll be right back. Okay, just went around and removed some of the bark. I think I came down about 3 inches or so. Let me check and see. Yeah, about 3 inches. We'll probably squeeze our figure into that. Maybe if we can save some of the bark, we'll cut it off here and make it look like he's standing or coming out of a tree stump or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of making it up as I go here. I've got the pith over here, so I'm going to whittle his little typical gnome hat. And I'm going to just kind of bring that to a bit of rather than bring it to a point, I'm going to kind of lop it over. So I'm just kind of going around here and bringing this down so I can make a little hat for him. So what I'm going to do here, as you can kind of see, I'm working my way around. I'm going to make his hat kind of slope over a little bit to that side. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of keep bringing this over a little bit and then cut this in. So I'm going to get it to that point and I'll be right back. Okay, I just went around here and as you can see, just whittled it back a bit, start cutting into here. I just made a stop cut on the side over here, just like so, and then just kind of cut up to it. And what we'll do is we'll start angling that. So the goal here is to make it look like his hat is kind of, you know, hooking over just a bit. So then we're going to cut down the top as well. I'll bring that back. So it looks like it's kind of, you know, folding over, flopping over, whatever, you know, type of thing. You know, you can kind of see where we're heading with this thing. And I just keep cutting in here a little bit, make it a little deeper. I like doing them like this because it avoids having a kind of a pointy end on top. You can kind of see. We're going to form the bottom of the hat. So I'm just going to start here. This will be the front of the figure. Yeah, it's pretty straight, so that'll be the front of the figure. What I typically like to do is slope the hat back slightly towards the back of the head. So as I'm going around, you kind of see I'm sloping it. I'm not going straight across. I'm kind of angling it downward just a bit. I mean, that's kind of the way I think hats, for the most part, sit on our heads, right? You can adjust it as you see fit. Went around here, got the initial boundary established for where his hat is going to be, and I kind of drew in a nose and mustache. We're going to give him we're going to make this a real simple, like lots of hair and kind of going around the nose, a really stylized kind of thing. So I'm just kind of going around here on that line I made. It's kind of, you know, somewhat of a circular mark, and I'm just making a little stop cut all around there. And then we're going to kind of cut up to that. That's all. Give him kind of a round nose. I think that's what I'll go with on this figure. So then we just kind of come in here at the top where the nose meets the thing, and we just deepen that a little bit, right? So we're just taking wood away over here. This is just kind of the initial cuts up to those, you know, the nose stop cut that we made. So we're going to wind up having to deepen that quite a bit, but that's kind of how we're starting out. I'm just going around here and just removing some of the wood around those cuts. I made the nose, just so you know too, I made the nose a little, it looks kind of really large there. That way we have enough wood, we can sort of round it out a bit. So that's kind of why I made it on the slightly larger side. I wanted to allow enough wood to play around with over there. But since he's going to have hair kind of coming all down, we're not even going to give him any, you know, real eyes or anything like that. He's just going to have a nose and lots of hair, and maybe, like, kind of see in here, I drew in maybe a couple boots or something like that. Actually, I think I got him off center. Maybe the whole thing should be over a little bit more. So maybe down here. So maybe these boots or so will come over a little bit further. Something like that. You know, I'm kind of, like I said, making it up as I go here. So keep that in mind. I'm thinking I'm going to just kind of put a line over here, which will kind of be a slight boundary for the hair from underneath his hat and around his face, going into where the mustache is going to be. So I'm thinking that's kind of what we'll do here. Kind of like so, and then, you know, same thing on this side over here. Like I said, he's just going to have lots of crazy hair. Very stylized, you know, kind of gnome-y figure. I'm just working my way around the back to establish the back of his hair over here. So I'm just kind of coming around, and I'm going to meet up with this line over here. So let's bring that down and around. What I'm trying to do here is basically what I like to do in a lot of my whittles that I do, especially as ones that I'm making up as I go. I sort of like to establish boundaries and whittle lines, so to speak, rather than drawing them all in. I like to kind of go around and sort of, okay, now I know I got a boundary over there, so I'll work the bottom to reflect that a little bit. So you kind of see. And this is far from the finished part of it, so keep that in mind as well. I'm going to deepen this a little bit more right along the nose here, so I'm going to kind of come in here. And by the way, I switched to the slightly smaller blade in case you didn't notice that. So the one nice thing about little pocket knives is you get three, four, sometimes 5 blades. This one has 3. That's really all you need. I modified them slightly. I've used them so much they're kind of not even, they're no longer even straight from stropping and sharpening them up over time. Actually, I think when I first got this knife many years ago, sharpening knives, this is one of the first knives, not first knives, but first pocket knife I actually redid the profile on the blade, and I think I kind of angled that a little bit more than I should have, but I was kind of a novice at that point, to be honest with you. Still am, but does the trick. Okay, so we're kind of coming in here. I want to deepen that as much as I can without going overboard here, but so I want to just kind of establish that boundary again, kind of because we need to make the nose look like it's sticking out a bit. So that's what we're doing. So you can kind of see from the side over here, it doesn't really look very prominent, and I want to make sure I can reflect that. Although I mean, it doesn't have to have a perfectly round nose. It can be kind of, we'll start whittling it circular, in a circular way, so it looks more like a ball. There you go. And I'm going to probably take the top in a little bit more because that's got to come in. So I'm working my way around. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to just kind of come in the top over here on both sides, putting some stop cuts. And then there's this little bit of wood in here, this little triangle, that would just pop right out where those cuts meet. So that starts to deepen things a bit for us. And then we just kind of continue around the nose, doing something similar to that. Underneath of it, where the mustache is, let's deepen that as well on both sides. All we're doing is relieving wood around that chunk over there, so we can form a nose. And if it's a little asymmetrical, that's okay. It's a no, So that's where we're at so far. Not look like much right now, does it? Hopefully, in the end, it'll look gnomish. I'm just cutting the hair in a little bit to make it look like it's flaring out from underneath the hat. So I'm making it deeper in there. All right. So what I'm going to continue to do here is just maybe deepen this a little bit more. I kind of want to get that nose out just a little bit more. We're getting there. It's still got a little ways to go, but since he's got so much hair, only so much of his nose is going to be poking out, right? And then once we get it to a point, we can start shaping the nose a little bit more. So I'm going to kind of come around here and start just rounding over the edges a bit. And I'm going to have to kind of come back in and touch that up, but that's all I'm doing. I'm just kind of coming around here and rounding it over just a bit. Walnut's a nice wood to carve. It can be, when it's fairly green, it can be a bit stringy, for lack of a better word. So, you know, keep that in mind. Sometimes as it dries out, you can go back and deal with some of the stringiness a bit more. So I'm still working on rounding the nose out. I want the peak of it to be right about there, so I'm just going to kind of continue to round it down and over. We'll make the part right underneath the deepest area of the nose and the face, because he's got hair kind of coming down over here, and I want to, you know, show that the nose is you know, kind of sticking out a bit more. I don't want to make it look too flat. So I'm just coming under here, and I'm removing a little bit of wood. And again, since he has a mustache, it's, you know, we're not really seeing, the only skin area on this figure would be his nose. You still want to bring the top part in just a little bit more. Let's see, we're getting there. Have fun with these kind of whittles, you know. They're meant to be silly and just entertaining to do. So enjoy yourself and have fun with them. Let's establish the where the mustache split is going to be. So, you know, that's right about. Just clean that up a bit. And well, I'm going to continue to probably monkey around with that, but here's the about the midpoint right there. So I'm going to put a cut right in here. And if you watch the Wood Spirit video, you see how I do these mustaches and stuff. And then we put another cut over here. We just split the wood underneath the nose. I'll give you a look that way. You can kind of see. I mentioned in the Wood Spirit video that a lot of the cuts are kind of triangles. You're just cutting out triangles. Stop cuts and triangles. That's pretty much it. And you can kind of see over there it was a triangle we took out. Now we're just making these stop cuts, and we're following along here. Get him some crazy long mustache. So there's where we're at so far. We're going to make all this in here beard, and I guess mustache will kind of, let's make it just wrap right around, tie into his back of his hair or something like that, I guess. Why not? Kind of like that. again, just kind of establishing those boundary lines. Yeah, we'll refine them as we go. So there you go. You've got some crazy hair coming all over the place here. This will be hair from his head. We've got the mustache, the beard, and then we'll give him two little boots kind of just poking out. So I'm going to split it right here in the middle again. And more, kind of like what we did with the mustache. I'm going to put actually three cuts, and then remove that triangle of wood. It's going to look like he's got little boots underneath all that hair. Like I said, we're going to keep this real simple. Everything's going to be, you know, his hands are kind of hidden below his mustache, and most of his face is hidden. You're just making this a fun little guy here. I'm just kind of roughing out where his boot tops are going to be. That's all I did. I just kind of went around there, and we'll cut that back a little bit more. Like I said, these are meant to be real, just, you know, play around with it, and real kind of fun little cuts. So there you go. That'll be the first. That just kind of rounded over. I know it doesn't look like much from there, but you're establishing these, like I said, these little areas of wood that we're going to come back and refine and change into boots and hair and everything else. So you can kind of see where we're at right now, right? I'm going to do the same thing over here, and when I get that done, I'll be right back. Just kind of went around there. What I'm going to do now is just kind of establish the base. Like we said, we're going to I was thinking about maybe making it look like he's standing on a tree stump or something. And he's a gnome. He's trying to get a little bit higher up there. So I'm just kind of working my way around here. So there you go. So what he's going to have here is hair. Let's say his beard will be coming down like right about here. I'm just kind of looking on the side here. I'm just going to put a little stop cut in, because we'll call this the back of his little coat or something that he's wearing. So, yeah, I guess we could do it like that. Yeah, why not? Because the hair will be wrapping around his boots. So I'm going to come right down over here. This will be his, the underside of his beard. And it's going to come kind of right down and around like that. So I put a little cut in there, and I was just going to kind of come back here, and again, that's all. Just making that mark, dividing those planes up. So here we have the beard, and here we have his coat, and there we have his mustache. I've mentioned this too a number of times in videos. If you watch my videos about looking at when you're doing this kind of whittle. I mean, it's one thing if you're following a pattern and you're doing, following someone else's designs. Maybe you don't approach it this way, but I do a lot of my whittling just kind of on the fly. I don't really. Sometimes I like drawing them out first, just to kind of get an idea of what I'm getting myself into. But when I do whittles like these little gnomes and stuff like this, I kind of just, or wood spirits, I make them up as I go. Whatever works. So I like to divide the planes up. So there you go. Now, if you can kind of see that, we got a hair plane that's going to be wrapping around, and we got his little coat. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And obviously you look at each of these planes and you say, okay, this one's on top. This is the hair itself is the outermost plane, then the mustache, then the beard, then the coat. They all kind of, you work with that in mind. You don't necessarily think of it in terms of, I got to whittle a hand, or I got to whittle, a boot or something. Just think of it in terms of just planes of wood, and remove the wood around it with the idea of establishing a depth in the whittle itself. Understanding, like I said, the different planes over here. This is going to be the innermost plane, and then work your way out. And just start with that. And once you kind of do that, don't look at a whittle like the finish. Like if you're whittling, based on something, another, maybe a picture of a whittle that you've seen, or some design that you've seen. Don't look at the finished product and worry about like, oh well, they did the hair like this, I got to do the hair here, and the mustache, I got to put this in here, and I got to curve it like that. If you think like that, you're going to get way ahead of yourself. Just think in terms of planes. Start dividing it out, rough the whole figure out like we're doing here, and then come back and add those kind of details, and then you'll find that it's actually much easier to do that way. Don't get some people look at a finished whittle and they go, oh, I don't even know where to start. Well, you start by putting a knife into the wood and start dividing it up into the planes that you're going to need. That's all. And once you kind of get that mindset, you'll find it goes a lot easier. So there you go. And I'm going to just kind of bring this back in a little more because I want this a little bit deeper. I want it to kind of flow back and around like the piece, his hair is coming out a little bit, so it's flowing outward, and his coat's tucked underneath there. So what I'm doing is I'm just coming in here and deepening that little plane. The other thing with found wood, you never know what you're going to run into. You might run into something in the wood and not inside the wood that kind of changes what you need to do. So, kind of keep that in mind too. So let's see. Let's put his coat plane on this side too. So, or his beard plane, I should say. Right? Let's see, where would we do that? Right about there. So maybe right about here is where we're going to do that as well. So I'm just putting a stop cut in the wood. And just going back and removing that, dividing up that plane. So there you go. We establish it on that side too. So now it looks like he's got a beard below his mustache and a coat below all that. Getting there? Let's separate those boots a little bit more. I'm going to put a knife right in the middle there. Come back on the other side and just remove the little wedge of wood in there. So it looks like he's got, two separate boots. Kind of like that. Kind of give you a look, see where we're at. Side view. And front view. So we got basically all our necessary planes established here. So at this point then, I guess you could say the rough out phase is kind of done. Now you're going to look at it and go, okay, now we got all this in, what kind of detail do we want to add to it? And for some people, maybe, this is sufficient enough, and that's cool too, because, you can make it very stylized looking. But we'll add just a bit more detail, just to kind of make it, fun. And why not, right? So let's see. First thing we can do is let's start working on the hair a little bit here. So, maybe put a little. I just want to get rid of some of this extra lower bark area. I'm also putting little faceting cuts in here as I do this. You can kind of say, oh, and I switched to the smallest knife, which is slightly modified. It was a bit longer than this, and I cut it back just a bit. Makes it a little easier sometimes getting into tighter spots. So I just kind of go around here. I start that's the first part of the hair modification, so to speak, is I go around and I just start adding a little bit, cleaning up a little bit, adding some little maybe scooping cuts in and around, just to kind of add a little bit of variety to it. make it look like it's kind of flowing a little bit. And then we can come back in and add detail on top of that. There you go. Now if you want to add a little detail on top of that, we can kind of come in here and start breaking it up a bit. So put little cuts in there to split it up, just to look like it's poking out a bit. So we're going to start doing that. We're going to start working our way around and having fun doing that. Kind of getting into it's a bit repetitive, but it's fun. You can add more or less detail as you go. You can break it up more, whatever you feel inclined to do. I'm just giving you some kind of ideas here. We'll make it look like this strand here is tucking underneath this one. So we'll bring that down, and maybe likewise, same thing down here. So it looks like they're curving around. And then I just kind of play around with the ends a bit. The thing to, I think, keep in mind, I think that what helps to make your whittles kind of interesting is not don't repeat the same cut over and over again. And I don't necessarily mean like, oh, don't you can't do more than half a dozen stop cuts or whatever. I mean the style of cut, so to speak. So if these are angling that way, maybe this one kind of comes down at a slightly different angle and slightly different length type of thing. So just mix them up. Don't make them all go in the same direction. It looks too mechanical that way. See, those angle this way, this angles that way. So that's all. Start playing around with different modifications like that, and you'll find that the piece just looks better. Reads better. You can get a lot with doing something as simple as that. You get a lot more variety and uniqueness to the piece, and it doesn't just look like like some mechanical marks in there. Mix it up a bit. That's all. And you say we're just kind of going around having some fun. I'm going to continue to do that. Basically, just what I did over here. So you sort of see where I'll finish up the hair doing that, and those kind of cuts, just going around putting those kind of cuts in. I'll continue it on this side, and once I get that done, I'll be back and maybe work on the mustache a bit. Alrighty, be right back. I thought I'd just jump back in here and kind of show you. I tend to like to create hair that looks like it's kind of flowing up, underneath and above, kind of like hair would, without creating a lot of individual strands, but just hair, bunches of hair, so to speak. And I just wanted to show you, like over here, you see I'm kind of working these pieces up. After I split the bottom, I kind of go up a little bit further, and then I see this one in here, and I said, well, let's make that one look like it's tucking underneath. So I just deepen it up at the top, and it looks like it's coming out from behind the other two strands of hair. That's all. Like over here, if we wanted to bring this piece up and maybe look like, maybe have that like it's tucking out too, we can bring this up a little bit further, like so. Maybe I'll bring my knife in here and just put a little bit of a stop cut, kind of bring it up, maybe curve it up a little bit, come back in here, and just deepen that a bit more. So then it kind of looks like it's tucked around, or tucked below the, like this one here is below this one. That's all. And I kind of just, like I said, I go through and I do my best to create as much variety without going, without going crazy. and putting, you know, individual little strands of hair in. The other thing I like to do at the end is kind of undercut them a bit, you know, at certain pieces, so it looks like it's maybe sticking out a bit. I don't know if you can, let me just kind of show you what I mean. Like this piece right here, it's kind of, it's probably hard to see, but it kind of, it's undercut a bit, so it's looks like it's, you know, away from the head. These up front, same kind of idea. You know, going underneath here, and I undercut it just a bit. So it looks like it's raised a bit above. Sometimes I wait to do that at the end because, you know, you never know if you're leaning on the piece or you hit it wrong, you might snap the end off. So I don't typically like to do a lot of that until I'm right at the end of the whittle. But I just figured I'd kind of jump in there and show you that. But that's kind of all you have to do for the hair, and then you just got to go around and you know, just clean up your cuts a bit. I don't get too crazy with cleanup until the end typically. I like to just keep working until I get it to a point that I'm happy. I just wanted to kind of show you how I start going around and work on hair here. I'm not going to waste everybody's time blathering on and showing you all that because you kind of got the gist of it. I'm just going to go through here and add some variety, add some angles and curves and undercuts, and you know, before you know it, you'll have something that looks kind of crazy, like he's got hair sticking out all over the place. That's kind of what you want, right? I mean, right? He's you know. Okay, now for doing the mouth, I just do these this little triangle that I round off on the end here. So I'm going to put a cut in here. You can see where my knife is, an angle downward. Stop cut in there, straight into the wood, and cut up to that, like so. And then flip it a little bit and try to line them up as best I can. How about right about, yeah, right about there. Put another stop cut. And we got that crazy pointy tongue thing sticking out now. We can leave it like that, but I don't think gnomes have pointy tongues. So we don't do that. We're not making a tongue anyway, we're making a lower lip. So there you go. Then we just notch that off. Just bring that right back up. And round it out. You can kind of see what we got left there. And bring it up a little bit more. And then we come in here and we go straight in. The same thing I did in the last video. I'm going to go straight into the wood here and just go. You can see the angle. I'm literally straight in. And I'm just going to take out with 3 cuts this little triangle of wood. It deepens that. It looks like he's got now a mouth in the lip that we just made. And you can kind of refine that lip if you like it up. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. I try to keep them round. There you go, something like that. Now it looks like he's got a kind of a lower lip there. It's the exact same method we use. Sometimes I'll hollow this out. I'll curve around. It looks a little bit better that way than maybe straight across. You might have to do it both ways. There you go. Something like that. Gives some indication of a little gnomey lip in there. And like I said, you can refine it if you want to bring it back, if you don't like it that big. There, something like that. And it looks fine for now. And then we're just going to kind of go around here and do some mustache modifications. And I think I'm going to kind of just put a couple little cuts in here, kind of like what we did the hair. So I'm going to kind of go around here and put a few cuts in, and then maybe just, it's hard to see right now, isn't it? Kind of like so. I need to get a little bit more work on those because they're kind of sloppy right now. But it looks like he's just, the mustache on that side is kind of, I think I'm going to remove some of that darker bark area. Play around with it. Maybe carry those cuts up a little bit further. Kind of see. I like to separate it at the bottom so they don't look like they're all at the same level. So it kind of just looks like it's bushy and breaking, you know, like hair strands, like it would. And you just kind of see how we split those up a bit. And you can kind of come, maybe I'll put one more over here where it's kind of wrapping around the back. Separate that up a little bit, bring that up a little bit higher, and then separate the ends. Kind of like that. You can kind of see how it's splitting apart here. We want it to look like it's kind of flowing around. Probably the key, like I said, is just to make the bottom, you know, when you finish one strand, tuck it a little bit higher up than the other one, than the one next to it, or the one that's supposed to be a little bit longer or lower, and then angle them around. Hair strands kind of typically come to a slight point, so if you take the ends here and you just point them out a little bit, it reads better as a strand of hair, I think. To me, it does, at least. There you go. So we got a mustache. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I won't make you sit through that, and you know, maybe clean these up a little bit too. And when I get that done, I'll be right back. Just wanted to give you a look, kind of added a little bit of detail to the other side of the mustache. Same kind of thing we did. Just cuts, go back in, and you know, just round them out a bit. Start off with the little, you know, wedge cuts on the end, and then go back in and elongate them and you know, round them over and shape them in different directions, and you'll figure it out. It's not that hard to do. Best to experiment. Now for the beard, it's a little bit different. I'm looking at it here and trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Probably we'll add in a couple cuts here. So let's just put a little cuts here and there just to make it look like hair coming down. This side will bring down this way a little bit. And that's all I'm doing here. I'm just kind of going around, breaking that up as well. And the same thing on the ends over here. I'm going to kind of bring it down, flip it around, remove some wood. You see how we're doing that. We're just making this hair flow around. And so when I'm at the bottom here, I'm going to separate those two strands of hair. Maybe curve them around just a bit more. This looks like they're flowing on the other side of this boot. Kind of like so. And then this one I'll probably break up as well. You kind of see. It's pretty simple to do. Might have to deepen the jacket a little bit more. That's all. Just kind of, like I said, we're making it, we're just trying to make it look like little strands of hair that are flowing from his beard around his boots. You can kind of see how that is over there, right? It's not all that difficult to do. I'll probably tuck this one underneath and carry this one up. This is the most time-consuming thing on these whittles, is doing the hair, which, you know, kind of makes sense. It's a lot of little cuts that you're making. When you get down to the top of the boot, just same thing we've been doing. You know, go down and break it up into different pieces. Make them look like they're going in different directions. And before you know it, you'll get it all done. So that's all. You kind of see it's out tucking about. His boots are going back over here. And that's all I'm doing here. I'm doing pretty much the same thing we've been doing all along. Just now bringing it around. You kind of see how I did that. So I'll finish up the other side and be right back. Okay, I've got his hair kind of flowing around there. And the only other thing we have on the bottom here is the back of his coat. Here's a little jacket. So I'm just going to kind of, what I'm doing is I'm scooping wood up like so, because I want to make it look like it's kind of bunching up down behind him. So I'm kind of coming in here. I'm just scooping the wood up a little bit. I don't know if you can you see that there on both sides? And then what we could do is round it over, kind of undercut it a little bit just on the very bottom of it, so it looks like it's kind of like a rounded little fold. You can deepen that a little bit more if you want, so it stands out. It's kind of the interesting thing about this found wood. You get all these spalting marks and everything else in there that, I don't know, just adds to the general character of the piece, I think. That's why I really enjoy whittling and found wood like this. And there you go. So he's got a little fold on there. So now you can see it's already beginning to check up here. So what I do typically to stop that, or to slow it, is to coat it with a little wax or so. But I'm not done with the hat yet, so I want to kind of take that back a little bit. But that's okay. Actually, again, I'm not that concerned. If it does check, that's okay, because it's all part of the character of the wood. But now I'm just kind of finishing the hat up here, so I'm kind of coming back in and scooping it up a bit. Thinning it out a bit, because it's a little too bulky right now. As you can see, I'm thinning out, leaving a bit of an area down over here for the what would be, I guess, the brim of his hat. And I'm scooping the wood up as I get closer to that. I'm kind of coming here and scooping it out. You see on the side over there. Well, I like having a little bit of a flare at the bottom like that. I think it just looks interesting. You can kind of see how that's coming out there. It's looking pretty good. maybe a little bit thinner up here. These are fun and just enjoyable little whittle to do. You really can't go wrong. And in the end, you get a, you know, a fun little character here. Not overly detailed, but just enough. I mean, I think people, if you see that, you kind of know it's either some kind of crazy hillbilly or a gnome. And then on the top, that little point, I start to, like I said, I'm going to taper that back. And then cut it up a little bit. On both sides. Gotta see what I'm doing. Remember, this would be the point of the hat typically, so we want to angle that around just like so, and then take it back. And go around and get a little texturing cuts to the hat. And we can call this whittle good. Sometimes I'll undercut the brim a little bit just to clean it up. What I'm going to do is just kind of clean it up a bit. Really not that much more to do other than going back. Like I said, you go back now and you kind of, you look at some of your cuts and you see where it's a little frayed. Wet it up a little bit if you want, and you can kind of get a, it cleans it up a bit. And you can kind of see where you have some spots that you gotta clean up. I like adding a little bit of these scoopy cuts to the hat too as well. Like so. There's our little walnut gnome. I'll clean them up and I'll give you a look-see right at the end. All right, I'll be right back. Well, there you go. It's all done here. I just went through and, added whatever final detail. Like I said, with the hair, you just do a bunch of overlapping cuts and you add as much or as little detail as you want. But that's it. I clean them up with a little water and toothbrush, and I'll wait till it dries. I'm thinking about maybe adding a little bit of color to it. I don't know. I'll see. But just wanted to give you a look at it, the finished piece here. So I hope you enjoyed that whittle. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you're going to give something like this a try. Again, in a piece of walnut, or if you want to try this, you can grab any branch that you have available and give it a shot. This will darken up as the wood cures a little bit more. So sometimes when you add color now, it's it might change quite a bit as the wood darkens. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed that whittle. Have a great whittling week. I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.